G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today, well, we're going to be doing part 2 of our review of this quad right here. Now, this is from Advent Quads, and this is the Nex X3. Now, I've already done a review of the frame itself, and I'll leave a little link to that up here. But I've put this thing through its paces, I've built it all up, and I've been thrashing it around. And I've got to say, and it's not even a pleasant surprise, I knew that this was going to be a great quadcopter. So you guys have been hassling me a ton. I get a lot of messages about this almost daily about when are you going to review or finish reviewing the Nex X3. So here it is, we're going to stick it on the bench. I'll show you how it went during the build process, which was awesome. Then I'll show you some flight footage because I am having a blast with this thing, especially on 4S. Anyway, let's get started. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench, all built up, and just a few things I want to point out before we continue with the build. So this thing is filthy, and I do apologize, but I've been having a lot of fun with it. Took it out today, I smashed 2 propellers, and it got very, very dirty in the process. So what is the Nex X3? So if you're just tuning in or you haven't seen part 1, this is this little blue carbon frame right here, and it's designed to spin 3-inch props, and the exciting part about it, it rocks a full-size FPV camera. So that's how it's made to come, and that's what I do fly in here, and it has been fantastic. So let me quickly just explain to you what is in the build and how the build process went. So we have some 1306 red bottoms on the outside. We've got some Rotor X props just here. We have our VTX in the top, and you can see the stack right here in the middle. It fitted fine, so I've got a little piece of foam in here just to stop some vibrations, but I've got a 4-in-1 ESC on the bottom just here, and I'll leave a little review up here for somebody if you're interested in finding out about what ESC I did use. And then in the middle I've got the Kakoot with an inbuilt flight controller, so I'm going to be reviewing that soon as well. So that's been great. Sorry, the Kakoot with an inbuilt OSD, so this thing has OSD as well. And then at the front, this is where our exciting part is, we have the Runcam Owl, and that's been going really, really well in this FPV little setup right here, because you get awesome FPV quality in such a tiny little micro. And then underneath, something I did, and I'll try and leave a link to one of these in the descriptions down below. These were just some sticky like M pads or M3 pads or whatever, and they stop your battery sliding around. A really, really awesome little solution. Anyway, let's weigh the frame. So how much does it weigh with all that stuff in there? So let's zero in our scales, and with everything there and a little bit of some broken props, it's coming in at 177 grams. So a little bit of a porcupine, but that is fine because I do have that extra sort of rubberized piece on the bottom. I've got a full-size antenna sticking out the back, and you can see my lamp just here. And we are rocking a full-size FPV camera. I probably should tighten that actually. I don't want that to go out of focus because I was messing around with it a little bit today. Rightio, how did I go with the build? So the build process, if you use a 4-in-1 ESC, I had no dramas at all putting all this together. I felt like I had plenty of space, not plenty of space, but just the right amount of space. So even if you're up to a first-time builder, I do think people could do this. I didn't even direct solder the VTX or anything like that because this frame does have this little awesome place here where you can secure your FPV antenna right down. The only issue I have is if I really want to tilt my camera back, it sort of is bumping into the stack right there. So I don't know if you can see that, but if you really want to have an extreme angle, it is going to press almost against the flight controller. That is something to be wary of. But other than that, this build was super easy. A little bit of a story. I took it, we had a bit of a build night at a mate's place, at Pezzy D's actually, and there were about 5 of us there. And I was able to knock this thing out in about 2 hours to get most of the build of this thing done anyway. So that was all pretty cool. So that's the build side of things done, but what I really want to talk about is just how this thing flies. So the FPV experience in here is fantastic because it doesn't have a CMOS camera. You can actually put in a proper size camera or one that you actually like to use, and this thing felt great in the air. And the biggest reason of that was because I could rock it with these. So the way I built it, I was rocking some 1000 milliamp high voltage, so 4S lipos, and this thing was killer. It is absolutely a weapon in the air. Now it is almost rivaling my Atom, actually my Atom V2. The Atom V2 only runs on 3S and is a little bit lighter, but by being able to stick this bigger battery on right here, this thing was absolutely ripping around the race course and still very, very stable. So So this, I bought these batteries a little bit ago, and they've sort of been hit and miss for me because 1000 milliamp hours, it's not quite big enough to stick on my my 4 inches or my 5 inches, but you know, when I really want to punch it. But for this has been amazing. These two are a match made in heaven. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut to some flight footage, and I'm just going to show you this thing zipping around. The props might be a little bit busted up, but I can't remember exactly what flight it is. But it was an absolute blast flying this. So let's cut to that flight footage in 3, 2, 1. Radio, so here we are on board with the Nex X3, and I've got to say, awesome little surprise. I didn't realize that this VTX had a microphone built in, so we also get to listen to some of the motors spool up as well. But you can see this thing is a little pocket rocket. For 3-inch, this thing can really cover a lot of ground, and that's because it is coupled with those high voltage 4S batteries, so a ton of power in such a tiny little sort of package. Now it is worth noting that because we've got our camera in here, we really look how good these colors are. Now you really don't get this sort of good FPV footage on traditionally on 3-inch micros, but because this thing can rock a full-size FPV camera, it looks absolutely awesome. I was very impressed. Now you can see when you put the throttle down, this thing does cover a ton of ground, which is it was very impressive actually for the speed and how stable it was at speed as well. I didn't get any oscillations or anything like that, which you usually experience when you have a sort of a smaller prop at really high oscillations, but this thing felt really stable in the air. And another thing I love about sort of the 3-inch size is how they can go anywhere. So you can go a lot of places. You can see just how quick it is in the flips too, really stopping on a dime there, very responsive. But these little tree gaps, they're sort of something I wouldn't really attempt too much with my larger craft, but this thing was awesome. And if you happen to make a mistake, a lot of the times you're actually going to get out of it because of its lightweight, just sort of bounces around. So you can see I bounced off the ground there and was able to fly away. So I can't stress enough just how awesome this little frame is. I love how you can put in all your sort of full-size components that would be in its larger, bigger brothers in such a tiny little package. Now I'll leave a link down below in the description of where I got this from and sort of its components, but it was using some little Emax red bottoms, I think, an OWL camera, and I will also have a review of there's a review of the ESC that I had in there. So this was a 4-in-1 20-amp ESC, and that made the build a breeze. And I'll also leave a little bit of a link to the VTX, which I didn't realize was so good actually because it's got the microphone. And then the other part in here was like one of the new Holybro Kakoot flight controllers with an inbuilt OSD, and all that in there made a really tight package. And I've got to say, this footage sort of speaks for itself. The OSD is working really well, and look at that power. You can see it just punching up there. Very impressive, and also very responsive in the flips straight out of the box. So yeah, awesome little quadcopter. And if you want to find out where to get some of these components, I'll leave all the links down below, so go check those out, because I think this build I'm really happy with. It was one of those ones that just came together and worked really well straight out of the box. So fantastic job. Oh, a little side note too, if you are rocking the 3-inch, you really do need to monitor your throttle a lot more, because this thing is going to go up and down, and you can hear the throttles there in this sort of clip. But yeah, you really need to monitor your throttle, because it's not like its larger brothers, which are a little bit more floaty. This thing is literally sort of like it's on a wire, just up and down the whole time. So I guess it's really good throttle management you can practice when you are flying around with these things as well. So that's something to be mindful of if you're getting a 3-inch for the first time. So there it is, there's my review of the Nex X3 from Advent Quads, and this thing is awesome, and especially my favorite feature, there's so much stuff packed in here nowadays with all the OSDs and those sorts of stuff, but my favorite feature of this one is that you can actually rock a full-size FPV camera, because this thing looks beautiful. I love the FPV experience when I'm flying this around, and it is the perfect size to rock some 4S, because I know I've got a newfound love of my 1000 milliamp high voltage 4S lipos, and with that on here, this thing is an absolute screamer. It is totally awesome, and that was kind of something that was a little bit different too compared to because I know people are going to be like, is this better than the Atom V2? Well, the Atom V2 has a different camera in there. You do have a bit of a better OSD in the Atom V2, but with this thing, you can rock 4S, where the Atom was really only meant to run a 3S battery or a 3S high voltage lipo. This thing, I've been loving this thing on a high voltage 4S, so this has sort of brought back a big love for these tiny little 3-inch quadcopters for me. Anyway, subscribe for more FPV related content. Hopefully you guys like the look of this one, and if you're interested in making a small micro and you want to build it yourself, this is definitely one that you can't go wrong with. I really, really like this frame. But subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying!